Good evening and welcome. This is The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. Hello, I'm Andy Hodges. Now, we continue with our election series here on ZTN Prime. And today's episode is brought to you by ZTN Prime in partnership with the Election Resource Centre, ERC. The clock is counting down swiftly to Zimbabwe's harmonized elections. 27 days to go. The country is going to the polls, of course, on the 23rd of August. Election season is in full swing. Political parties taking part in the constitutional process. Some are holding rallies all over in all provinces of the country. 12 presidential candidates, more than 210 parliamentary seats, 1,970 council seats are up for grabs. Add that, of course, to the Senate seats. And, of course, my main question is, of the 12 contestants vying for the top seats, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, who will emerge victorious? Over 6 million voters from all walks of life will exercise their right and choose their desired leader or leaders in this year's election. Meanwhile, we have seen citizens flocking to rallies in their multitudes to hear directly from party leaders. Let me say this year's election has witnessed deafening silence in terms of manifestos. I know, for example, Xavier Kasukwere, the independent presidential candidate, has released his. Previously on The Chase, Ziyambi, representing ZANU-PF, said their work on the ground speaks louder than a written manifesto. But it appears that most other parties are playing their cards close to their chest. To discuss these issues and more, I'm joined in the studio by representatives of some of the political parties battling it out in the August plebiscite. Our topic for discussion, Election 2023. 12 candidates, 1 seat. Who will prevail? Join me and my guests tonight live on The Chase. Welcome back. You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. I'm Andy Hodges. This is ZTN Prime, broadcasting to you from our studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. Today's episode is brought to you by ZTN Prime in partnership with the Election Resource Centre, ERC. Our discussion, Election 2023, 12 candidates, 1 seat. Who will prevail? What are the political parties and candidates promising you, the electorate? What are the main issues in the country that these candidates face if they win the vote? What do citizens actually care about? In the studio today, I actually have a full house. Right, I will go through them now. We have here in the studio, well, there will be coming Chengetai Gutu from the MDCT and Jacob Mfume from Triple C. In fact, Chengetai Gutu is on his way and will be joined by Jacob Mfume from Triple C on the phone. We do have Farai Marapira from ZANU-PF here with me in the studio. Robert Mubaiwa, MPC, he was invited but did not appear. Elizabeth Valerio, UZA. Gwenyai Muzarewa, UANC, they're both with me in the studio. Madok Chivasa from NCA will be joining us shortly. And finally, Munyarazi Bwanya, Xavier Kasukwere's Chief of Staff, who is also with us here in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Chase.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, to my guests, I will allow you to interject, but please understand that here at ZTN Prime, our values are dignity, dialogue, and debate. All views expressed on The Chase are those of our guests and do not reflect the views of Zim Papers 1980 Limited, the Election Resource Centre, ERC, or indeed of ZTN Prime. Now, to our viewers watching ZTN Prime, we would like to hear from you. So please join this discussion via our Facebook page, Zim Papers TV Network, our Twitter handle at ZTN Prime. Your voice is important to us. Now, before we begin tonight's chase, as I always do before every chase, I'd like to reiterate our view, as of all political parties, by signing a peace code, that violence has no place before, during, or after this year's election. Right, I'd like to start with the political side of it. Elizabeth, welcome. Now, you're the only participating female presidential candidate so far in this election after winning your court case against the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. What do you think are your chances of winning this election? Firstly, as a presidential candidate, and secondly, possibly some of the party candidates that you have fielded.
Sure. Now, we have a huge job to do in terms of getting in front of the electorate, and that's what we're focusing on. But the good news is we've been doing so for 26 months. We've been on the ground engaging with citizens all over Zimbabwe. So I think my chances are really high. I'm very confident that I will be the next president of Zimbabwe. And I'm looking forward to having as many of our MP and, of course, councillors, our candidates in government as we go to the elections this 23rd of August.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot. What percentage do you think you're going to get? I mean, obviously, you mean you must be aiming for 50+1. Is that?
So, you know, it is going to be very interesting because I'm coming into an election for the very first time on the presidential ballot, and Zimbabwe has historically always viewed two candidates or two parties as the leading, you know, options. But the response I've had from Zimbabwe, in particular over the past, you know, year or so, as we've been canvassing Zimbabwe, meeting citizens, they are ready for a new government. They're ready for a new political candidate to lead this nation. So I want to be sure that Zimbabwe will turn up at the poll stations and will give us more than 50+1. I hope will be an overwhelming win, so there is no question as to who the new president of Zimbabwe will be.
Now, last week we had Douglas Monzora, MDCT, Jacob Mafume of Triple C, and Ziambi of ZANU-PF. And I asked them this question. I'm going to ask you all the same question. What are your chances in this election? I think let's start with you, Munyawati.
Thank you, Andy, for having us. Our chances are very strong. President Kasugwere has come late into the ring. He announced his nomination immediately before nomination court on the 21st of June, which is just about a month ago. But he's been canvassing. We all know that nomination process precedes the nomination court. President Kasugwere was nominated by at least 100 Zimbabweans from all over the 10 provinces of Zimbabwe. People he has remained engaged with. His chances are very strong. The reaction from the government, and in particular ZANU-PF, has been telling that the only person that they've been afraid to have on the ballot paper is Xavier Kasugwere, and it is for good reason. The reason is that he knows this country well, he knows the mistakes of the past, and he's prepared, and he's admitted some of the mistakes that ZANU-PF has not been able to admit in the past 40-something years. So we have a strong chance. We're calling this a reset, simply because this election is really an opportunity. It's like the 1980 election. It's an opportunity to chart a new course for the country.
Munyawati, 27 days to go. No one has seen your candidate. Where is he? Why is he not here? Surely a presidential candidate should be in the country for voters to see and interact with and listen to?
Correct. And you will know that President Mugabe, when he came as Prime Minister in 1980, he came a little over 18 days to the election. I think he arrived in Zimbabwe shortly, sometime in January. The election was in February. It has been done before. It is not new. President Mugabe went on to win that election, and he had only arrived. Before that, they had been based in Mozambique. The party had been based in Mozambique, Lusaka, and other places. They were not campaigning from here, but they were canvassing the election.
So you don't think it matters?
It does definitely matter. It is not the decisive factor. The relationship with the voters between the presidential candidate and the voters and their needs is the critical thing.
Farai, we've heard from various representatives of ZANU-PF, and they're singing the same tune. We're going to get 5 million voters, which is a huge number when you think the entire electorate is probably just over 6 million. So I suppose, let me ask you, you know, without sounding silly, what are your chances of your candidate, Dr. Edie Mnangagwa, winning the election, particularly in the first round, if I can say that?
Well, the proof is clearly there for all to see. You can look at the attendance of people freely coming to celebrate with us as we move towards another confirmation as a government. This is backed by the groundswell of work. This groundswell of support is backed by the massive work that has been done in the past 5 years. Suffice to say, it's actually 3.5 years, because remember, we lost 1.5 years to COVID. If you're to look at the monumental changes that ZANU-PF under President Mnangagwa has delivered to this economy in only 3.5 years, this indeed, we're still a work in progress, but if you look at where we were in 2018 and where we are today, that is why we say to everyone, ZANU-PF's manifesto, you just open your curtain and you look out your window, it is there. There is a road that is being made, there are bridges that have been set up. In every province with our devolution, we have touched every household, essentially. There is nowhere where the impact and the hand of the president has not been felt in redeveloping and rebuilding and resetting Zimbabwe's economy.
But the attendance at rallies doesn't translate to votes, does it?
Well, in the case of ZANU-PF, it does, because we've got a very, very strong support base, a very loyal support base. And rally attendance has always been a very good measure of support for ZANU-PF in the past. There is nothing that makes it any different today when it has been the groundswell of support which shows endorsement. This is why you see that our rallies now are essentially celebrations, pre-election celebrations, because the mood is electric. The supporters are fired up. It is, in the view of ZANU-PF and our supporters, the election is already a done deal because we have been sent to deliver a mandate. We have delivered over and above expectations on the mandate. Look at Zimbabwe now. We would have thought that we could be exporting grain, but we are looking at exporting 40,000 tons of maize to Rwanda. These are the things that people are looking at.
All right, I have to jump in there, unfortunately. Gunyai, you heard my question. What are your chances in this election? What are your chances in this election, sir?
My chances are 100%. If I doubted that, I would not have paid $20,000 to the nomination court. 100%. Because to be president, you don't have to have thousands of, you don't have to have millions. I'm vying for 3.6 million only. That will see me into presidency. I say this because a lot of people have been waiting for change. And we are talking about bringing in something that the people of Zimbabwe have waited for 43 years, and then also for 23 years. They've been waiting for this. So because we are bringing something new, because I'm a new voice in politics, because I am I'm a man of the cloth, they know that what I'm going to bring is something that they would like to enjoy and to vote for. And so I know that I'm going to be the next president. And the good news about that is that I'm going to be the kind of president who unites the whole nation. There's this healing that we need now. The nation is torn apart, and I'm the kind of a president who is saying to Zimbabwe, let us get together, let us be united, let us live in peace, and let us forgive each other. Let us be one, because we fought for this one country, and now we have it. We should love each other, take care of each other, and definitely we will prosper, because even the outside world will come in if they see that Zimbabwe is at peace, Zimbabwe is looking for prosperity, Zimbabwe is bringing what we've been looking for.
I have to jump in there. So if let me get this right, even if you said the 50 plus 1, 3 million, 3, 4, 6, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 million, and we've got 6 million voters. Well, we'll find out on polling date, won't we, when you cast your vote freely and fairly. I hope I'm joined by Jacob Mafume on the line. Jacob, are you there? Okay, no, we have lost him, but I am told that he's almost at the studio. So Jacob Mafume should be here, and also Chengetai from MDCT. I'd like to ask. Well, I was going to ask Jacob, but let me ask you all. Oh wow, there's all sorts of. Now I've got so many people coming. So let me ask you. Let me ask you, please, Munyaradzi. You know, there's been criticism from political parties, political opposition, that this current election, there is not a level playing field. And in fact, critics even go so far as to say that the ruling party, the ZANU-PF, is using state machinery and even some cases the courts of law to stifle election campaigns. What would be your comment to that?
There's absolutely no doubt on the question. In the case of President Kasukwe, everyone has witnessed Lavdo Mangwana making a court application. We all know that Lavdo Mangwana is related to the ZANU-PF Secretary for Legal Affairs, Paul Mangwana. He's also related to one of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission commissioners, also a Mr. Mangwana. Clearly, we can't say that there's been no hand of ZANU-PF in that decision. There have been photographs of Lovedo Mangwana, which have been leaked from within ZANU-PF of Mr. Mangwana with the Minister of Justice. So that is one. We are calling it lawfare. They're using the courts and the law to try and discredit and discount. Essentially, what we know is that they want to use the courts to disqualify and choose their own competitors. President Mnangagwa should not be able to choose his competitors. He should, if he is confident in his campaign, he should be able to allow everyone who wants to compete, including the lady sitting next to me, to compete. There should be no barriers. When the Liberation War was fought, the key thing that they all wanted, which they knew that would fix the country, was the power of the vote. Let Zimbabweans choose their own leaders. That is the critical thing. That is the entire summary of the Liberation War movement.
Okay. Elizabeth, as you said, you've been on the ground, or you are on the ground, your representative have been on the ground. What is your response to this level playing field, or the allegations that ZANU-PF is deliberately trying to stifle other parties' election campaigning?
Sure. No, I think it's definitely not level. We've not seen a level playing field since we started as a political party. I agree with a lot of what Munyaradze has said. When you think about the fact that I applied on the 21st of June for the opportunity to contest in this election, and a month later I now am being given the ability to be on the ballot, even though I did all the right things. But even today, there's another woman who was in court. She was also wanting to become a presidential candidate. Her appeal case was actually rejected. And partly, the biggest issues that some of our candidates have faced is the cost of participating. So it's one thing to say we want our voters to be able to choose their own leaders, but if you don't even allow the leaders to be on the ballot, they're not going to have representation which they're choosing. It's imposed representation. So there are, I mean, even today, our vice president, who was a member of parliament, candidate, he was also in a case with 12 other CCC candidates, and he has been removed from the ballot as of today. Has done everything. He was in court at 9 o'clock, but was served with a court case saying he was only registered as a candidate at 4:30 in the afternoon, which is absolutely nonsense because he was told to sit on a bench outside. So the playing field is not fair. It's not free. We really want to get to a point where we have an electoral commission that is allowing people who want to serve and represent to be part of this election.
Gunnar, your views, is it a level playing field? Do you think that ZANU-PF is deliberately trying to hamper opposition from campaigning openly and freely?
The playing field is not playing. There are some problems, there are some difficulties. But the interesting thing is that when the president of the nation, His Excellency President Emmerson Mnangagwa, when he speaks, he says, we want peace in this country, we want to be united, we want to love each other. Now, when the president says that, and then the guys around him act in different ways, I don't know how to deal with that. But what I know is that when the UANC gets in there, there's going to be the kind of election that people look forward to, where there's peace, where there's tolerance for each other, where there's freedom to express oneself, because that's one of the things that we really fought for, freedom. By the way, the UANC is the party that fought the Smith regime for one person, one vote. I almost said one man, one vote, but I cannot say that anymore. One person, one vote. And so we got that. That should be in place.
Farai, I left you for last deliberately because, of course, the question is principally sort of directed at your party, ZANU-PF. You heard the other candidates. They allege there is no level playing field. They believe that ZANU-PF is deliberately putting in place measures to stifle their campaigns using state institutions and what one of my guests called lawfare. And that, in fact, they even go further to say ZANU-PF is panicking. What is your comment to these allegations?
Well, what I can simply say is lawfare is a myth. And what my colleagues need to understand is that the law is the law. and the law is impartial. To address the case that the lady there spoke on the issue of the 12 CCC candidates, it's a simple matter of looking at the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act states that no electoral officer shall receive papers in the case of a parliamentary candidate after 4 p.m. on the day of nomination, or on the last day of nomination if these days be more than one. And to be considered to be in the court, it is not enough to be physically within the court. You have to be in the court, having paid your fees and having all your nomination papers in order. So now, ZEC has got nothing to do with ZANU-PF. This is an independent body. And these laws, mind you, we've aligned 182 out of 204 laws since 2018. We are aligning laws to the Constitution of 2013, which his presidential candidate was a major part of.
Fine, I'm going to ask you this. First of all, you heard there from Sevika Square's chief of staff that this is a ZANU-PF activist who brought the case against his presidential candidate. That's number one. Okay. And number two, of course, the allegations that, you talk about aligning laws and so forth, the allegations that ZANU-PF has consistently been on the forefront of trying to stifle through statements like the police, trying to stifle rallies, trying to stop oppositions. I mean, this has been a criticism not just now, but over the years. Your quick response to that?
You need to understand that outside of castigating and attacking ZANU-PF, most of these parties have no other relevance because they have no other deliverables they are giving to the people. So they only come back to attack ZANU-PF. Since January, we have had 84 rallies blocked by the police, and the CCC has had 59. We have had more rallies blocked. There are a variety of reasons why rallies are blocked. We don't speak about it because we respect the impartiality and the professionalism of the police. So we have so many other things on the plate that we can deliver to the electorate, so many other things that we can say. Look, some of these are new candidates. They can go into an election with promises and be safe. But some of these have been in the game. Some have members who were elected 5 years ago. So they have nothing to tell the people that they've done in the 5 years that they were voted in. So what do? They start creating smoke screens. They start creating red herrings. They start creating all these false flag attacks, all these false flag situations. But it is really, we respect the ZEC, we respect the police, we applaud their impartiality.
And even the comments that ZEC is also captured by ZANU-PF, that is also a very theme that's run through.
It's quite.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to take a break because one of my guests is actually right. So it's time for us to take a short breather. Sorry, I will get back to you. You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. Our discussion: Election 2023. 12 candidates, 1 seat. Who will prevail? After the break, we'll talk about foreign direct investment, state-owned enterprises, power supply and generation, the currency, the environment, education and transport. Don't go away. The Chase will be right back.
Every morning, the smart start it deserves with your favorite homegrown breakfast cereal. Nestle Ceravita. Fortified with Grain Smart, a smart combination of irons, vitamins and minerals. Your family gets all the energy they need to make the most of every day. That's why every morning deserves a smart start. Nestle Ceravita. Highly nutritious, simply delicious.
Yawuya isifikile. Introducing the $dollar funeral plan. If you are a vendor, burial society, church, cooperative, organized group, this is the plan for you. For just $1 only, you can be covered. SMS live to 712 and we will call you back. We are Mose or Zani Lonke for just $1 per month. First Mutual Life. With you, for you.
Welcome back. You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. Our discussion, election 2023, 12 candidates, 1 seat. Who will prevail? This program is brought to you by ZTM Prime in partnership with the Election Resource Centre, ERC. I'd now like to welcome Jacob Mafume from the CCC, who's joined us in the studio this evening. But first, before I move on, I'll give you a brief opportunity to finish your comments. The question, of course, was the allegation or the direct criticism that ZANU-PF controls ZEC.
I think this criticism and assertion is blatantly false because their commissioners are not appointed by ZANU-PF. If you recall, the current CCC leader was part of the panel, if not the leader of the parliamentary panel, that did interviews on these ZEC commissioners. So these ZEC commissioners are appointed, were appointed by Parliament with all parties involved. There's a video of that.
No, he wasn't. You got it wrong.
Monzora
was the... Nelson Chamisa was not in Parliament when these ones were elected. Don't lie.
No, I'm not lying.
You are.
Remember this. Monzora was on the Constitution.
It's not
Yes, but CCC, was it not in Parliament? Was it not part of the
we
ZEC
said
commissioners?
our leader, Nelson Chamisa, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, as CCC.
Be that as
was
it
not
may,
part.
if I am mistaken on an individual, I am correct on the party.
You were lying.
No, I'm not. I was mistaken.
You're lying.
Remember, dignity, dialogue, and debate.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, Jacob, welcome to The Chase. Now, some of the questions before the breather we had asked you last week, you were here. We talked about the level playing field. We talked about your president, Nelson Chamisa, the president of CCC, his chances of winning. I'll give you just a brief chance to talk to that before I move on to the question. I want to talk now about foreign direct investment, but please answer that briefly.
Yes, I heard my colleagues speaking about their impartiality. They are so scared of elections that I saw members of his party celebrating that the High Court in Bulawayo has disqualified candidates from CCC. It is not coincidental that the only candidates that have been disqualified in this election are CCC. We respectfully disagree with the judgment of the court. We want to assure the public that people and other institutions must resist the temptations to being main actors in an issue that has to do with electoral democracy. It is very important. It is not one judge, one vote. It is one man, one vote. The people of Matabeleland have suffered a lot under disenfranchisement, and it is downright unconstitutional, illegal to wipe out 12 representatives, if not more, in one judgment. We must allow, as a nation, that electoral disputes must be resolved in the ballot box.
Do you believe CCC will win the presidential election in the first round or not?
Hands down, we are winning. We can see the fear. They are running around like headless chickens. They don't know what to do. They are trying to disqualify candidates. They are disqualifying a whole presidential candidate, Kasukwere. They are disqualifying candidates in Matabeleland. They are using every trick to try and have a non-election.
When you say they, are you then making the assumption that ZANU-PF is behind the legal judgments that are being passed by the court?
Yes, it's not coincidental. They cannot celebrate what they are not behind. Who is celebrating these anomalies? The Mangwana who has done the application against Kasukwere.
Where's the proof, Jacob?
The proof is, you can see it when something looks like a goat, bleeds like a goat, its behind is clear like a goat's behind. It's a goat. You cannot say that it is not.
All right, sorry, let me just quickly.
You're not the only party that has had candidates that are removed from the ballot. Our Vice President, Frank Mhlanga, was also part of that case and was removed from the ballot today, effectively. So
that's bad.
Farai, you heard Jacob Mafume, CCC, they, obviously implying ZANU-PF. Your view?
What else can they say when they've got no relevance except to speak of ZANU-PF? Let me tell you, the law, allow me to say this, the law is the law. We as ZANU-PF have got nothing to do with these cases. We are not, people cannot be irresponsible, disingenuous, and inept at putting a simple... Please don't interject. We are having a civilized one here.
No, but you're being uncivilized.
No, I'm being honest.
Gentlemen?
Yeah. Anyway,
Just wrap up as it's
we cannot blame ZANU-PF because some people are not capable of handing in their ballot papers on time, according to the rules of the law.
What ballot papers? You're already voting.
Sorry, the nomination papers.
I'd like to move on if you don't mind, because we do have a lot of stuff to cover in this episode. I want to now look at foreign direct investment. Okay, let me start with you, Elizabeth. You know, what would be your policies to increase or attract foreign direct investment into Zimbabwe and deal with what some may call the ever-increasing debt? And how would you deal with the historical debt and arrears?
I'll start with the historical debt and arrears. We need to re-engage with the IMF. We need to make sure that we have to work towards debt forgiveness. There is no way that Zimbabwe will be able to pay it in any reasonable period of time. And for us to develop as a nation, we will need to be able to have a restored relationship with the IMF. But I also happen to think that, you know, we've got, by the way, we've got a comprehensive manifesto that encompasses all aspects.
Is it being released?
On our website, there's a manifesto tab, and you can read it in detail. But essentially, the foreign direct investment is an important aspect of our nation's progression, but it won't happen until we have a stable investment environment. So we've got to remove this level of uncertainty that we have seen over the past decades within Zimbabwe, the unpredictable framework within which we operate, policies that shift and change continuously. That has to end. But we also have to look, before we start focusing on foreign direct investment, let's restore and ensure we re-engage the business sector that we have here in Zimbabwe. Let's help them to, you know, pave the way for enterprise within Zimbabwe, and therefore when foreign direct investment does come to the table, we are a functional you know, environment. I want to just add one more thing,
Please,
and that is that government must lessen its role in business. It needs to get out of the way and allow the enterprising entrepreneurs to do the job that they're doing.
Gunai, let me come to you then. How would you, if you win the top office in the land, deal with increasing or attracting foreign direct investment? And also, how would you deal with the historical debt and arrears that Zimbabwe currently has?
In terms of debt, we just have to, I think I agree with the previous speaker, we just have to ask for forgiveness. I don't want to say let's work with IMF. IMF is not your best friend. It's not our best friend. It's there, but they use us a lot. Enough about that. Now let me come back to the foreign investment. The main thing that we need to do in Zimbabwe, that I would do as a leader in Zimbabwe, is to enforce the rule of law. Investors will not come to Zimbabwe if there's no rule of law, if there's no enforceable rule of law, if investors know that their assets are not safe, they will not come here. So the first thing we do, and this is the first thing on our manifesto, good governance. We got to have the rule of law that is enforced from top to bottom. Once that happens, even Zimbabweans in diaspora will begin to invest. And then Zimbabwe, I mean, non-Zimbabweans who are out there who love Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe is rich, they will come here to invest. And that will also generate a lot of employment for our people, needless to say. So the rule of law is my best foot forward.
That's the key for your platform.
Yes.
Munyawati, as I said, Sevika Squares, how would your candidate, if he becomes president, deal with those issues of foreign direct investment and, of course, debt?
When he becomes president, that's the real phrasing of that question. What Zimbabwe needs now from an economic point of view is that the question of foreign direct investment is a domestic policy issue for us. There's a reason why foreign direct investment has run away from Zimbabwe, and that is the crux of the matter. It is the lawlessness that ZANU-PF has allowed to happen in this country. You have your house, someone can come and grab it tomorrow, and there's no certainty. You have a piece of land in the communal areas, but you don't have title for it. ZANU-PF can chuck you out of that particular village at a particular time if you wear the wrong T-shirt. So it is foreign direct investment. Good money runs away from bad money. That is the crux of our issue. We need to, for us to re-engage with World Bank, IMF, and other IFIs, we have to have a solid home and security. Our economy here must be kicking. Our economy here our politicians must be trustworthy.
what is lacking here, what would cause the richest man in the country to stay in another country. We have Strive Masiwa as an example. He has actually run away. So this is not a question of foreign direct investment. This is a domestic investment. This is a man, an entrepreneur from Zimbabwe who was born and raised here. When he becomes successful, he has had to run away. We have had many numerous examples. The current Minister of Finance at some point had to run away to another country. So it is in short, the issue is about enforceability of the law.
Well, unfortunately, we'll have to just take a quick breather. Please don't go away. The Chase, of course, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. This program is brought to you tonight by ZTN Prime in partnership with the Election Resource Centre, ERC. Don't go away. We're going to continue this discussion. I'll ask my other guest the same question. The Chase will be right back.
Following the story.
What is happening on Zimbabwe's roads? How did we get here? Through red robots. Basically break every road rule under the sun.
So nini ndakadhakwa nembanje dzangu ndikaenda kuchipatara ndaunorapwa kana handibatsiri asi ndikazvishaya tetega aiwa.
Deeper analysis.
So, are you ready and prepared if violence rears up?
Jacob Mafume's party has taken hostage of them.
The videos are there. Do not be drawn into the debate of discussing issues that are subjective. He said when he grows up, he would like to be like me.
Good evening and welcome to the program. Just to break the ice, what is ZINEF's mandate?
To promote media freedom.
And money matters.
Coming up, Tanganda Limited is set to bring online a macadamia processing plant.
Now, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange listed company Seedco Limited has resolved to suspend indefinitely its proposal.
Every week on ZTN Prime.
Hello and welcome to The Mint. I'm Andy Hodges. This is ZTN Prime broadcasting to you.
So when COVID came...
Welcome back. You're watching The Mint live on ZTN Prime. I'm Eben Mabunda.
I feel like I've got a word for somebody. Life, just as we all know it, is full of emotions. Hakuna kana game one, where in 90 minutes you can be able to fully express yourself, like football. Chance, it is a goal! What I saw, I was spectated. If our favorite player scores, hi, boy, jubilation. But if they miss, I'll get to shame. If the referee makes a very bad decision, we are so disheartened. If our team loses, I could go on and on and on and on. But simply put, football is 90 minutes of pure emotion.
Let your emotions run wild with the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. Bora Redu, live on ZTN Prime.
Welcome back. You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. Our discussion, Election 2023. 12 candidates, 1 seat. Who will prevail? This episode is brought to you by ZTN Prime in partnership with the Election Resource Centre, ERC. Munirazi, we were having a bit of technical difficulty, so I will repeat my question and give you an opportunity to briefly respond to it. We were talking about foreign direct investment and also dealing with Zimbabwe's debt and arrears.
Indeed, indeed. The issue ultimately is one of lawlessness in the country. What has made foreign direct investment run away from this country is the way in which we have treated those who came before. Essentially, there's been no security of their investments. We have come up with all sorts of policies to prevent them repatriating their profits. So I'll give you an example of miners from the UK, the British miners who were here before, in the diamond fields in particular. I think there was a company called African Consolidated Resources. They were involved in diamond mining. When the Zimbabwe government found that this was a beneficial business, they went there and chased them out after they had put in some investment. So it is critical how we treat people who have invested in the past. And the second issue then becomes one of the lawlessness itself. You can't have any foreign direct investment in a country where a minister or a deputy minister can call a police officer and say, discontinue a particular investigation or report to me, give me evidence. It is just complete lawlessness. And that impacts how we treat our own domestic investors here, how we treat Strive Masiwa, how we treat Mtumwa Mawere, how we treat Nick Vingerai, is a message to the world of what it is that we are getting wrong. If our own entrepreneurs are in the habit of running away from their own home country, it is very unlikely that a sensible person from a normal country would want to come and invest here. We have had a good wave of Chinese investment, but the majority of the Chinese investment that has come through into Zimbabwe is to do with infrastructure. If you went to Parliament today and asked any of our parliamentarians to explain to you what our arrangement over diamonds with the Chinese company is, they wouldn't be able to tell you that because it is opaque. It is there's so much opaqueness and lack of clarity. So that is point number one. Point number two, which is
if you could wrap up.
I'll wind up. Point number two, which is the debt issue. The debt issue is that it is a relationship issue. Good money runs away from bad money. The World Bank, the Paris Club, the IMF have discontinued loans to us because we stopped paying. They regard us as a bad debtor, and it is because of our domestic policies that we have been unable to continue with our repatriation. So it is about re-engagement with those institutions, re-engagements with all of our creditors, and finding a way to actually then restart payment where we can pay.
I have to jump in there. I have to jump in there. Jacob, Triple C, we talked about foreign direct investment and dealing with historical debt and arrears.
Yes, I mean, our positions has always been clear on this aspect. We have to rejoin the international community. We have to rejoin the Commonwealth. We have to deal with the things that made us voluntarily run away from the community of nations. We need to take our seat among the international platforms so that we can interact with everybody else. We need to deal with the hangover of the rule of law. We need to deal with the security of investments. We need to go away from graveyard economics that is being practiced by Guamatanga and his sidekick Mutuli. We have to be able to be very consistent in terms of our monetary policy. We are now having the I call them the tripartite, including Manguja, who are changing monetary policies using press statements. They wake up one morning, one writes a statement from his office, everything changes. The other one feels the other one has written a statement, they change again, and so forth. This yo-yo economic policy pronouncements from the comfort of their offices must at some point be put to a stop. We can't have a monetary policy that shifts like offals in a dish. You don't know what is happening, whether your money will have value or not. You can't remit the profit. Certain changes are done to what you can get, duty, foreign currency. There is no certainty as to what currency we are using at any given time. This is kindergarten economics, and as Triple C, we will put aside that. And when we were in the inclusive government, when we brought clarity, when we were there, we, international community, was flying in droves, and there was predictability and certainty in the economy.
Farai, some would say, critics have said that it's ZANU-PF that's created the debt that Zimbabwe is in, of course, being in power for so many years. And now you're trying to fix it by putting in place the high-level debt resolution initiative, of course, with President Chisano. Ex-President Chisano is one of the leaders there. Of course, Zimbabwe, every country needs foreign capital, needs foreign direct investment, and of course, in our case, unsustainable debts, which is a huge amount of our GDP. So how would you respond to the fact that it's ZANU who caused this debt crisis in the first place, number one? And also, secondly, do you believe that the high-level debt resolution initiative that's been put in place is the right way to go and is the best way forward for Zimbabwe?
Allow me to address the issue of FDI. Since 2018, the president has instituted, let me address that first, has instituted a vast raft of changes through the TSP and the NDS-1, and through a radical shift in our foreign policy of being a friend to all and an enemy to none. This has seen massive investment coming into Zimbabwe. I'll just say a few examples because of limited time. We've got the Manize steel plant, which will be opening its doors on the 1st of December. Zimbabwe is returning to becoming a net exporter of steel, which will be producing 4 million tons and above. You look at all the companies already invested in Zimbabwe have been expanding their operations. Unki Mine has expanded its furnace from 178,000 to 220,000 tons per month. This is FDI. We've got 5 billion Chinese investors here in Zimbabwe, not Chinese, but from all over the world. We've got Germans. We've got all nations coming back because of our vibrant foreign policy. And if you look at this, we also cannot discredit or go without mentioning local investment. If you're looking at all the malls that are coming up, every town you're going into, there's something being built. You look at all these filling stations. It's local Zimbabweans with their faith in the economy, with their faith in the policies of President Mnangagwa, who are now reinvesting within their country. So this has resulted in us seeing a rise in every sector of the economy.
Okay, all right, let's move. Okay, let's move on to debt then. The criticism, of course, that it's your party, that created the debt in the first place, and now you're trying to basically sort of negotiate your way out of it.
Well, to be honest, we can't say the debt issue is the ZANU-PF issue. The GNU that so many people loved and was not based on production, it was based by reopening of lines of credit. But we have moved our policy away from assuming too many lines of credit. That's why we have said we build our own country. We reset ourselves. That is the only way we can service external debts. We cannot service debts by taking other debts. We have to build our economy. We have to make ourselves productive. We have to make ourselves net profit earners. And from that, we can be able to pay the debts. How the debt is paid is not much of a matter. What is essential is where the funds to pay the debts are coming from.
My friend does not know economics. What are you talking about?
Please don't interject. I'm sure you'll give him a...
give him a chance, he can respond.
I'm not speaking from economics, I'm speaking from... listen. So what we're saying is, we do not want to rebuild our economy based on lines of credit, which is why you've seen that the resetting and the restructuring of this economy has not been with any major lines of credit from anyone. We have now risen every sector from manufacturing, tourism, mining. Mining, we're looking at 40 tons of gold this year, the highest ever. Maize, we've reached the highest ever in the past 20 years. If you look at...
But Farai, some would say that by using internal resources, you're putting the country more into debt because a lot of it is being borrowed out of the market.
No, we are not giving anyone loans on anything. We are producing.
Electricity is being produced by credit.
All right.
The farming is all credit. These are all loans.
Please let Farai finish your point, and then I'll finish your point, and then Jacob, you can come back. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I thought it was a civilized one, but of course we've got some more overzealous.
Dignity, dialogue, debate.
But
you want to finish your thought briefly,
this is what we're saying. When we look at our economy and how we've structured it and built it, you know, it's always painful when facts are put out there. You understand?
Yes.
When facts are put out there, it's always painful for some.
Pensions have been eroded.
Is the conversation for...
Has been eroded. Nothing has got value.
All right, let's... Right, can you wind up? Then I can just quickly bring everybody in. Are you...
Okay.
Just very quickly, please.
Let me tell you, the thing is, when you're giving facts and someone does not have any facts, like I had said earlier and before it had come, You know, when you're dealing with parties that were elected 5 years ago and they've got nothing to say, they will only major on attacking.
But you don't have a
But
manifesto. You don't have a manifesto.
The works, our works.
No,
who is the interviewer?
All right, let's okay.
Because now, listen, he cannot drive the agenda of the meeting.
No, he's not going to.
Yeah. So listen,
please wind up. I'll give you 20 more seconds.
Yeah, he cannot raise the point and it goes on.
Jacob.
Our manifesto, our works at the manifesto.
The manifesto is what you're going to do in future.
What we're going to do is NDS 1 and NDS 2.
I have many more questions to ask, and the other candidates are sitting waiting.
You see,
you have 20 seconds. You have 20 seconds. 20 seconds to wrap up.
Being loud is not
20 seconds to wrap up. 20 seconds to wrap up. Have you wrapped up?
Yes, our manifesto is the work that we're doing.
Okay,
we are not dictated to by anyone.
Let me get Munirazi, you wanted to quickly rebut or say something, but very, very quickly.
I wanted to respond to
very quickly.
Very, very quickly. They've borrowed money for command agriculture. They've not accounted for it. From the market.
Which market? Be specific. There's nothing for the market.
The Zimbabwe.
If you're going to make allegations, make allegations which are pinpoint. Who did we take that money from?
And the government funded.
May I ask you, you're not doing the same thing?
No, they've taught me well.
Please continue. Sorry, no, I think we just need to calm down.
If they interject and I'm speaking sense, I'll interject and they're speaking nonsense.
Please continue.
The main problem with our colleague from ZANU-PF and his party is that they sing a lot of flowery songs. Minister Mtuli tells us that there's a surplus in the country. But the biggest measure of whether a country's economy is working or not is what we eat in our households. It is where our children go to school, how we dress, so it is those things. Do we have electricity in the households?
Right.
Do we have,
I am going to get to power if you let me get there.
The point that I'm making is that when our gold deposits, our gold production comes up, that difference must be visible in our economy and in our lives.
Okay, we are going to get to some of these points, but I'd like to bring in someone.
There's no change.
Elizabeth, can you respond very quickly?
Sure. There are a lot of issues. I think that ZANU-PF, whoever is in government currently, because there are multiple parties in government today, have to admit to, and that is that we've got to start focusing on stabilizing our country so people can re-engage, whether it's our own local investors or foreign investors. But we've got to stop printing money, for example. That's one of the biggest issues. We'll never get to a point where we don't have this high inflation unless we stop printing money. Right. We also have to ensure that
please, quickly, if you can wrap up quickly, because I've got so much to ask you all, so we won't get to all of it. Yes.
I totally understand. No, but I think a lot has been said. I'll leave it at that, just out of interest for
you. Good night, very quickly, please.
I just wanted to respond to ZANU-PF response to what's going on and say that everything that you say sounds good, but it is true that it's only a few people, rich people, who are building these malls, who are flashing their money around. The main issue in Zimbabwe right now is unemployment. So how come all these buildings are going up, all these roads are being built, but employment is the worst enemy right now? Why? Something is missing there.
We'll get to that. Now, I'd like to move on, if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen. I want to now talk about state-owned enterprises. Obviously, we know from the budget statements that are made every year by the Minister of Finance, billions of dollars are allocated to state-owned enterprises. Most of them are loss-making and a drain on the fiscus. Some, of course, are profitable, but very few. What would be your policy with regards to state-owned enterprises? Let me go this way. I'll start with you, Munirazi. But as I said, you have 1 minute. Unfortunately, we won't get through all our questions.
Yes. The issue with the state-owned enterprises is that they are being poorly managed. That is the crux of the issue. ZANU-PF has appointed their cronies in particular. So you'll find that when a new minister comes, a new board is appointed. Where there's a new minister of mines, for example, ZCDC will get a new minister. But the clearest example of our failure in state-owned enterprises is NRZ.
But wasn't your own presidential candidate part of this, what you've just described? Was he not a minister?
Indeed. We're talking about promises. We're talking about promises, and this is the future. The problem with our politics is that we're looking so much in the rear view mirror, we're missing the windscreen. We're looking forward. What has happened at NRZ is the biggest testimony of failure in state-owned enterprises. Right. There are places where the train used to go when I was a kid that the train no longer goes to because there are no railway tracks, there are no railway trucks, and
the part of the failure of our economy right now is our failure to
So wait,
revive
sorry, I need to ask you this. Are you saying then that what your candidate did in the past must be discounted because that's in the rear view mirror?
It must be part of the judgment. It must be part of the judgment. The problem with leadership is that if you're a leader and you do not learn, President Mnangagwa has been with President Mugabe, he said, according to him, for 55 years. He learned nothing. That is the issue. Right. Kasukwere is coming and saying, look, I have learned from the past.
I told you.
And this is my promise for the future.
Unfortunately, the president isn't here to defend himself, so I think that may
Well, he admitted on national TV he was with President Mugabe for 55 years.
You heard the question, state-owned enterprises, Triple C's policy.
Oh, the most state-owned enterprises are crime scenes. There is thieving, looting, cronyism, girlfriendism. Talk about Zinara. At one point, Zinara, they went to massages, buying hair salons, and so forth. Talk about CSC. There is no cows. Talk about aeroplanes, Air Zimbabwe. Talk about what he spoke about NRZ, CMED. They just buy cars for chiefs and so forth.
Your policy, Jake.
So our policy is very simple. We need to commercialize these state-owned enterprises, appoint professional boards, do public interviews, get men and women of repute and dignity, and who know what they are doing, who have learned and have had experience from all over the world to be able to run commercial entities. Give them performance-based contracts so that we know they are moving this entity from point A to point B. Enter into those contracts.
All right.
Appointments to these boards and the chief executive must be and will be performance-based. It must not be a reward for loyalty or cronyism
but
or bootlicking.
Weren't those contracts actually already in place as we speak? I know state-owned enterprises, bosses and chairpersons and their boards have already signed such performance-related contracts, including government ministers.
Why are they not being fired? If you were at NRZ, if you are at CSC, surely we have not seen an export of any cow. Okay. Why are they still in place if the contracts are working?
I asked him, Elizabeth.
I would say that it really starts at the very top of our government. People need to stop looking at Zimbabwe as their personal property. It is not anyone's personal property. It belongs to the citizens. And so when it comes to state-owned enterprises, some of them are absolutely vital to our economy and right. So I would say that we've got to get to the bottom of corruption. We really have to make sure that we have a system of accountability in Zimbabwe when there is the exploitation, and the gentlemen have spoken clearly about the problems that are happening. When there is exploitation, there should be prosecution. We need to have individuals who are serving in this nation, whether it's in our enterprises or within government, that are accountable.
Vinay?
State-owned enterprises could actually be one source of employment for a lot of people who are unemployed right now. So, however, they should be managed professionally and by competent people, and there should be strict audit regularly, and so just so they actually make profit. I'm concerned about the parastatals. They're actually draining money. They drain money from government rather than bring money. They drain money because there's no accountability. We had this thing called Anti-Corruption Commission. My goodness, what a joke. In our administration, in my administration,
I have to ask you about your policy, sir.
My policy is that our policy is that we will make sure that every parastatal is managed professionally and of course commercially, and every parastatal is actually a source of employment rather than exploitation of government funds.
Right, ZANU-PF has for many years spoken about privatizing or partially privatizing state-owned enterprises, yet critics say that this is just mere talk and no real tangible action has been seen on the ground. I believe back even as far as 2018, ZANU-PF was talking about partially privatizing and privatizing, yet frankly, out of all the SOEs, very few have even gone down the path or started the path. Your comment?
Well, what I can say is that to paint the whole parastatal matter black is dealing with a lot of falsehoods and deviance from reality. We have given boards and CEOs, performance contracts, and some of these parastatals are actually on the rise. In the case of NRZ, it is not sufficient to resuscitate NRZ before resuscitating the industry which it must serve. There are things that move in tandem. So if you look at the Vision 2030, you look at TSP, you look at NDS1, and you look at the way we are moving, you look at now how other sectors are rising. They are creating the need and the market for government to now resuscitate NRZ. For example, if you look at manufacturing, soon we will be exporting like we are now doing with agriculture, because if you go into any supermarket, whereas in 2018, 16% of the goods were imported, now 75% of the goods on the shelves are locally made, which is pushing us towards becoming exporters. We will need a cheap and quick way of pushing out our products. You look at Manize, with this production of 4 million, there is a railway which will be created to a
So
port.
are you saying that ZANU-PF is still sticking to the policy of partially privatizing or privatizing?
Yes, we've been doing that in the manner of speaking by our private-public partnerships.
But our roads are suffering because there's no NRZ.
Okay, but you say this, but there's so many
I'm only answering one
parastatals.
person, so
There's so many parastatals. There's so many parastatals.
conversation.
We heard recently, POSB, for example, was starting to look at some investors coming in. But it looks as if, in the sense of the other ones, there was a deal with NRZ that didn't work with some consortium from South Africa and so forth. I mean, it doesn't look to the outside observer that anything is being done when it comes to SOEs. Sorry, please, Jacob, please, may you answer.
In as much as, no, don't that I'm ignoring him. In as much as we might say...
You can't.
No,
Jacob,
I'm not talking to
you.
You're not convening this panel.
Please let him finish. Jacob, we all let you finish.
I cannot be able to account by people
Please finish. Please finish.
By perennial failures.
Jacob, he needs to finish what he's saying. Maybe he will. Please finish.
I cannot account myself to perennial failures.
Please go ahead.
Anyway, I will not be held accountable by perennial failures, so I'll address you.
Please go ahead, sir.
This is what I'm saying. If a deal is coming through, there is no way we're going to mortgage or get into a deal which is unsavory, which is not beneficial. So this is the basis on which a deal may not fall through, or may not go through, and then it falls through. So at the end of the day, we are working in the interest. We're not going to...
This is not a business.
Please continue. Please continue.
We are not going to...
One successful parastatal.
Jacob,
you can't
please continue.
Words.
You say you're not
please,
going
in
to.
the meantime,
Jacob, please
listen.
Please finish.
Please yeah, thank you so much. He's trying to answer to me. It's a schoolboy tactic. So successful what?
Parastatal.
Net one. Thank you. Well, how is it not turning profits? Is it not turning profits?
Right.
What is success?
Okay, I have to move on. I have to move on because there are other candidates here. I don't want this to boil down to the two of you
I just gave him one
talking to each
example
other.
now. He can't answer.
Okay,
anyway,
so you're continuing with the policy of privatization and partial
anyway,
privatization.
thank you.
It's being beaten by economics.
No,
Jacob?
the onus is on you to prove that what I've said is false.
Jacob, we need to move on. We have many more questions. The other candidates are sitting here. So I'd like to...
like I said before.
Like
I said before, the problem is when ZANU-PF speaks facts, those without facts and those who have only the credit of attack have no other option but to resort to attack.
I'd like to move on, please, if I may.
The question he fears is to answer what he has done in the last 5 years. He himself, besides bashing ZANU-PF, what has he done?
All right, it's time for us to take a breather. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to take a breather. You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. But before I do, I actually would like to bring Elizabeth in.
When I am president, I'm going to have to manage this lot, like literally.
Well, I tell you what, you know what? Now, I like that. Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Let's continue. I'm not going to take a break as I'm being asked to. Let's continue. And let me start with you, Gunai. I want to look at the currency, okay? And I'm going to give you some options or not, and you can decide which ones that you would stand for. Are you for or against full dollarization? Or would you support the current dual currency system? Or would you advocate for the exclusive use of the Zimbabwe dollar in all transactions in Zimbabwe? And finally, would you support the floating of the Zimbabwe dollar on the market and let market forces determine its value? What would you do in terms of the currency?
We are going to have one single currency in the country. At this point, my party is not willing to disclose what that is, but definitely we're going to have one currency of value.
27 days to go. You won't disclose whether US dollar, Zim dollar, you won't
Yeah, we don't, because, hey, that's not good. We know that. Those are some things we keep to our chest.
Okay.
But it'll be one currency, though.
All right, Elizabeth.
We can't make any radical changes at the moment. The US dollar is being used quite widely, and other currencies, of course. It surprises me that we're not using the rand more, since we trade so heavily with South Africa. But we've got to get to a point where we have a Zimbabwe dollar that has value. And when it has value, we need to work with the Zimbabwe dollar.
Would you float the currency if you were president?
We at this point, we're still going to have to look at the policies of, how best to approach that. But what I would say is we cannot re-engage in the international market until we have a currency of our own. It's impossible. So that is the end goal.
The money that we have to put in people's pockets has to have value. People cannot live like this, not knowing the value of the money from day to day. We will have a currency that has value. Our president has said we will maintain the US dollar at the current moment and all the multi-currency regime, and remove this pretend currency that is only used for rent-seeking behavior and has created havoc for pensioners. Imagine working for the rest of your life.
Are you saying you would fully dollarize?
Yes, we have to.
And eliminate the Zimbabwean dollar?
There is no dollar. We have a we have a currency that sounds like a heat-seeking missile.
Right.
RTGS. Okay. Is that even money?
Would you float? So would you float the?
Float
so
what?
there's no need.
The thing is sinking.
All right, Munya.
Yes. I think in the short term, the multi-currency system is working. It would continue to work. What needs to happen is to strengthen the Zimbabwean dollar by properly managing the economy. The reason our currency, whatever it is called, they don't even know what it's called. Is Zimbabwe dollar, RTGS dollar, or bond note? It has so many names and surnames. But the fundamental issue is that the economy is poorly managed, and as a result, our dollar has no value. It has no steady value because the economy is not steady. So in short, the multi-currency is what works for now, but the eventual destination must be...
Will you fully dollarize? Will you float the currency? Quick questions.
I think floating the currency for the moment is the correct course of action.
I've left you to last because, of course, we are talking about the current system, which is under the ZANU-PF government, of course, of the dual currency system. Now, one issue that ZANU-PF has said consistently is that you will bring back the Zimbabwe dollar by 2025. What are your views? Dollarization, dual currency, Zim dollar coming back in 2025. What is ZANU-PF's policy?
We are not bringing the Zimbabwe dollar back. The Zimbabwe dollar is here.
Fully, I'm talking about fully. I mean, fully.
Yes, because you need to understand that what we need to do first is to create the economy that can sustain the dollar, and this is in progress. If you saw when there was that announcement of the election date and some saboteurs tried to play around with the currency, because of the current resurgence of the economy, we were able to contain that. And if you look now, the Zimbabwe dollar is even strengthening. If you look at the markets, we simply open it to we are working with an open market system with the RBZ. If you look at the market, these are flighted daily. It's free on the internet. If anyone wants to see.
Please finish yourself.
Every time the RBZ will be selling, those that want to export, those that want access to the US dollar, people will go there, they will apply, and the
so you will maintain the current
government's
policies, ZANU-PF's government's policies.
They are working wonderfully well.
You believe they are?
They're working wonderfully well, yes.
All right, I'd like to move on to power generation, and I'll come back. Let me start with you, Farai. Okay, I will acknowledge Wange 7 online, Wange 8 coming online soon. I will also acknowledge that we've had less power outages over the past few months. I think that is a fact, but the issue now, of course, is long-term solutions. It appears as if there's a huge amount of money that needs to be spent on power generation and increasing our power generation, particularly if we expect our economy to grow, become a middle-income country by 2030. So, ZANU-PF, what is your plan to deal with investment into power, additional power, and, more importantly, additional power generation?
We've been under the administration of President Mnangagwa, we've also been looking into the creation of green energy, mainly solar, and a lot has been done in that field. In 2018, sorry, we've got a clown in the room, but it's okay. In 2018, we had in 2018 you can go to the courts, my brother.
No, but it is not.
This is not student politics.
I suggest
this is national politics. We've got viewers on the other end who want to hear what we have got to say. You cannot come and be a clown and we don't play to those
Gentlemen,
politics.
I have
Anyway,
to step in. I have to step in, please.
Yeah.
Dignity, dialogue, and debate.
Thank
We
you.
need to give
Thank
each
you,
other.
thank you.
We need to give each other time to respond.
Maybe
and
someone
I will allow
someone
you
should
to
put clown
interject.
paint
But
on
what I won't accept is stopping someone talking or
Thank
answering
you.
the question. But you do have a minute left, so please answer quickly.
So what I'm saying is we've moved from, if you look at the dams we've built, the next stage with these dams is we're putting hydroelectric power plants on the dams. We've got an example of Gwaishangani, which is going to be completed this year. We're going to be putting another power plant on Tirikwi, on Tokomkosi, my apologies. And we've also moved from 2% of the power going onto the grid being coming from solar in 2018 to more than 10%. So you can see that these are big strides that are happening in solar production.
Right.
So we are moving towards electrical self-sufficiency. We are looking at becoming net exporters of electricity by 2025.
Okay.
Yes.
Good night. As I said, guys, gentlemen and lady, we have a minute because we have a lot more questions and we're running out of time. And I've got so much more to ask you. Good night. Talking about power, your plans if you won the office of president in terms of additional power, in terms of creating generation capacity, because obviously as the economy grows, we're going to need more and more power.
We are going to definitely go solar as much as we can. But since we also have a large supply of coal, we continue to use that. But definitely solar is the way to go.
Renewable energy,
Yes.
solar. Elizabeth?
Well, I'm an environmentalist, so of course I would like to see a future in Zimbabwe where we are focusing on green energy, but also really leveraging the entrepreneurial spirit of Zimbabwe. Let's put them at the forefront of starting to find solutions for renewable energy. I also think we need to rely less on fossil fuels and have less foreign, miners coming in and extracting and exploiting our fossil fuels.
So you want to move away from coal and move more into environmental solar,
yes,
wind?
But
Is that your policy?
Absolutely, but in addition to that, I think that we need to ensure that we are exercising responsibility when we are looking at extractive methods of power generation.
Jacob, 1 minute, Triple C.
Yeah, well, we are very clear. We're going to reduce the cost of energy. They've made electricity available by just increasing the price. People can't even make tea currently because of the runaway prices of electricity.
That's not answering my question.
Yes, we reduce the price of electricity.
Okay.
We are going to increase the capacity of solar, green energies. There are many rooftops in Harare. We have the most sun all year round. We have got many rooftops. We've got many areas where we can take advantage of the abundant solar that has been gifted to us. Of course, hydroelectric becomes another option, and also creating synergies with our neighbors so that we can build the joint hydroelectric plants that need to be built
And
on the
fossil fuels, are you saying
and
Triple C?
fossil fuels, we need to start phasing them out. We cannot continue relying on fossil, but for now we will have to use fossil fuels. But as we go forward, we need to phase out. We need to restructure ZESA so that it is a monolith of inefficiency. And so therefore we have to break it down so that it can be into manageable pieces.
I have to jump in there. Munirazi?
It's very clear that at some point we'll have to move from coal and become more green. But the issue for now is what is sustainable. The Germans have just dismantled some of their power plants and are resorting to solar, to coal. It is very clear that in every part of the world, people must depend on the resources that they have. The demand by the Western world that we move away from coal is really inefficient, and in the long term it might be a goal, but the demand from the West that we move away from coal at the moment is not sustainable. It is not in the best interest of Zimbabwean people not to use resources that are available to them.
Okay. I'd like to move to the environment. I think let me start with you. You just declared yourself an environmentalist. It appears issues around the environment and specifically attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, appear, commentators contend, not to be an issue in this election. In fact, the World Economic Forum states that the top 4 dangers of the planet revolve around the environment and climate change specifically. So what would be your policy with regards to dealing with plastic waste, settlements on wetlands, and also the alleged environmental damage by mining companies? What would you base your environmental laws on?
Sure. We've got a huge challenge in Zimbabwe because those who are supposed to regulate the environmental factors are not really able to do so without interference. I've seen it firsthand. I fought the battle to protect Wangia National Park from coal mining. I think that we need to ensure that we have responsible policies and we enable the people that are supposed to monitor environmental factors are able to actually do so without hindrance. But you know, you spoke of a number of issues. When we do have investment in the mining sector, let's make sure that we also are taking the equivalent efforts to social responsibility. I do see right now in a lot of the extractive spaces, there's very little transformation of the community. In fact, I'm worried and concerned about, and our policies also are very aligned with protecting and ensuring.
So the environment will be one of the top pillars of your agenda?
Not necessarily. I am an environmentalist, but I'm not imposing my agenda. It's an important one to us, as are many others. But I just want to say, very, very briefly, there are parts of Zimbabwe right now where everyone is drilling boreholes. I'm very concerned about this, constant reliance on boreholes for water. We're not responsibly managing our water supply systems. We also have right now water contamination taking place as a result of the mining sector. No one is paying attention to this. Our children are drinking water that has carcinogens in it, and the air pollution, the air quality. You only have to open your eyes in Harare to be able to see the.
I have to drop in there. I gave you more than a minute, so I have to move on. Gwinyai, environment, SDGs, dealing with issues that matter, climate change, plastic, environmental degradation allegedly from mining companies. What would be your environmental law based on?
We are concerned about preserving nature because we rely on it. Our culture, our African culture, is value on nature. That's why you got so many taboos in you don't cut this tree, you don't say this, you don't do that, and so forth. However, that's just culture. But when it comes to technology, we really have to drive our people to understand. We are going to teach our people that, for example, right now with the tobacco, people are just cutting trees from left, right, and center. Our government will have to bring in a mechanism that helps the farmers, especially the tobacco growers, to cure their tobacco in a certain way that does not destroy the environment. Deforestation is our concern, and we want to stop it. We can stop it. But in addition to that, I want to say in the presence of the people who run the city that honestly there are too many boreholes. And sometime down the line, we're going to lose water. There's going to be no water in the ground, and that we must have a way of dealing with water as a natural gift.
About water management.
Yeah.
All right, Fry, let me come to you. ZANU-PF has been accused by critics, of course, of not taking climate change and the environment seriously enough. They state that even though there are environmental laws, the major issue about them is enforcement. Your comment?
Well, President Mnangagwa, one of the foremost factors he's been dealing with during this first term is the issue of making Zimbabwe as climate-proof as possible, which is why you see that there was a beginning to 12 high-impact dams being built. Some have been completed, some are still in progress. This is to climate-proof Zimbabwe from the erratic rainfall situation that is happening. On terms of mining and in the environment, the president has empowered EMA to have essentially more powers to enforce adherence to the environment. We have to seek a balance because at the end of the day, there is no way there is going to be mining without certain effects on the environment. So what is important is that as miners mine, we focus on reclamation. I'm sure the term has been seen a lot in the press. And that is one of the foremost policies in terms of the environment from the president. So we are focused on, in as much as we want the mineral underground, in as much as we want what is there, we must also take care of the top layer. We must also reclaim and make sure that after all the mining has been done, the mining itself must be done responsibly. After the mining is done, there must be reclamation, and EMA has been very aggressive on this. I give them due credit for that.
If we're talking about climate change, if I just follow up quickly before I move on, we're talking here about fossil fuels. We've increased our usage of coal. That's an issue. We also, as you say, there's building of wetlands going on throughout the whole country. Obviously, plastic is a big issue. These don't seem to be I don't know what the word is. They don't seem to be concerned or something that there's priority on.
On the issue of the usage of fossil fuels, to be very honest, the global warming that is here right now because of fossil fuels is not by us. That's one of the foremost things we must realize. So we have the resource, right? We have the coal. Until and unless we have developed alternative methods to power generation, which will make coal redundant, we have no option but to use it.
All right,
and we cannot be held to ransom because of the result of pollution which started in the 1800s.
Can I ask just a question, please? I'm not trying to be part of this argument here, but at what point does that fossil fuel that you are extracting as ZANU-PF also going to start translating into benefits for the people in the region? Because we're not seeing that direct translation. Instead, we are seeing,
about economic gains based on policy.
Yes. So
sorry, let's.
Well, if you look at it, we've got some of the best coal in the world. We're exporting our coal. We are even beneficiating it into coke, and we are one of the premium coke exporters in.
All right. In fact, Elizabeth, thank you for jumping in and taking my job very quickly.
But anyway,
because there is so much to talk about that we do. So I'd like to just quickly. I'd like to just move on if you don't mind. In fact, I'm actually coming to you first. I want to talk about diasporans. Okay. Now, critics state that ZANU-PF is against, for example, diasporans voting. You want to attract diasporans to invest back in the country. You want diasporans to come back. This is your stated goals. But at the same time, you're also against them voting. And they say that that's because you as a party, ZANU-PF, perceive that most of those diasporans may be opposition supporters. Your brief comment.
First and foremost, that is a big fallacy. We would want the diasporans to be able to vote, but we have to be able to do things within our capacity.
You would like diasporans to vote?
Yes, every Zimbabwean should have the right to vote. We are popular everywhere.
So why have you not instilled policies to allow them to?
We do not have the resources. We are still trying to rebuild our economy from sanctions.
Right.
Yes.
All right. I'd like to. Let me start.
So what we're doing is we're focusing on our economy first.
I did start with Gwinnett
when we
later.
can afford it, we'll do it.
Munyabati, your views, diasporans.
They actually don't want a man who's visiting South Africa to be a candidate because he visited South Africa.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to rebut, but I've only got a few minutes left, unfortunately.
So the issue is that ZANU-PF knows, and it is very well aware, that the people who went to other countries in general have run away from the socio-economic conditions that they have created in Zimbabwe. So people have gone to the UK to look for jobs. People have gone to South Africa to look for jobs. Because they're running away from ZANU-PF. My colleague here has said unemployment is one of the critical things in the country at this stage.
So you will allow diasporans to vote, yes or no?
Diasporans must vote. It is their right.
That would be an immediate policy, or at least something that your president will look at if he wants.
It is immediate. There are no additional resources required for someone to go and vote at the embassy in Pretoria.
When we made the constitution in 2013, diasporan vote is permissible under the current constitution. That it is not being done is an indictment on the reforms and the electoral reforms that need to be done in this country. It is very important. We get huge remittances from the diaspora. They contribute to the economy of Zimbabwe, and they've created a social net for the failings of his government, which has failed to take care of pensioners, failed to take care of widows, failed to take care of children, failed in every aspect. But we will engage the diasporans. We want the diasporans to vote and to be part and parcel, because we want them to invest again. They cannot invest where they have no rights.
Okay.
The United Zimbabwe Alliance, without a doubt, in our electoral reforms, it's on our manifesto in print. We are going to ensure that every citizen, regardless of where they live, will have the right to vote.
And to be voted.
And to be voted.
Good night. Sorry, please.
I agree with her. We will allow people in diaspora to vote. We know that in every country there's a Zimbabwe embassy. That embassy ought to be able to handle that. In 2018, if I may go back, in 2018,
no,
they
unfortunately you may, but we haven't got time.
Oh, okay. So going forward, we will invite, actually encourage the people in diaspora to vote.
All right, I'm going to go across, and unfortunately, we literally have about 4 minutes left, but I think this is an important question. If you're elected, I'll start with you, Gunai. If you're elected into power as President of the Republic, would you follow through with paying former fathers $3.5 billion United States dollars, which I must remind you is a constitutional fact? What would you do about the compensation to former farmers?
What I understand about the compensation is that that money isn't coming from Zimbabwe. It was donated by 5 countries. So if it means that we need to pay back those people, we pay them back, but we are not giving back the land.
All right.
We are not giving back the land.
Okay, I know ZANU-PF is negotiating for that, but there is one question I'd like to ask you directly. Recently, at a recent launch of a commodity fund, one of the government officials stated that ZANU-PF is going to make the title deeds or the 99-year leases bankable, which obviously means you're putting value onto those leases, which some may say could be looking at reversing the land reform policy. What would you say to those critics?
It's not necessarily so. But we want to enable our farmers to be able to chase lines of credit. So we have to make our land bankable. It is ours.
Yes. But bankable means that it can be tradable. Someone can buy it off somebody else. Could you not get to a fact where one person could buy huge swaths of land and you're back to where we started?
Not necessarily so. Not necessarily so.
Okay. Elizabeth, sorry, I literally have 3 minutes. So, Jacob, I'm coming to you. Elizabeth?
To reverse the land reform policy. What we are going to do is ensure that citizens have security in their land,
and
that they do receive.
$3.5 billion payment to former
so
farmers.
we are not going to reverse the policy that is in place currently.
Okay, Jacob.
Yes, we will give title to landowners, both communal and commercial.
You eliminate the leases.
We will. Well, that is nothing. It remains owned by the state. Why don't we give our people the ultimate right in land ownership? Right. If we believe in our people, we must give them title.
All right.
When ZANU-PF says that it is our land, it means that it is ZANU-PF land, because the people who are actually on the land do not have any rights of ownership over the particular pieces of land. President Kasukuwere in his manifesto has been very clear that the communal farmers, a person with 1 hectare of communal land has no value to it. A person in the city who has 200 square meters of land has more value for it. That is a serious anomaly which they have failed to fix over a period of 43 years.
Well, thank you. Now, when I did say that this would be an election series, you can imagine there's so much to talk about: foreign policy, transport, health, education. I could go on and on. And in our election series going up to elections, we will be covering and speaking to all the political parties about what their policies are on those, so you, the electorate, can understand them. So before I go, I can give you each about 20 seconds for your parting words. I'll start with you, sir.
The message is to President Mnangagwa, truly. It is simply that we do not hate him. We just love our country more. He has to go.
Jacob.
Advocate Nelson Chamisa is the best foot forward for this country. Under his leadership, we will have and restore a new great Zimbabwe, which will bring happiness and prosperity to this country's nation. Vote Advocate Nelson Chamisa.
My message is to the citizens of Zimbabwe. Every 5 years, you get the chance to choose your leadership, to choose your government. The United Zimbabwe Alliance is taking back Zimbabwe for Zimbabweans. We want to ensure that everyone in Zimbabwe has a good life. And in order to have that good life, don't just hope for it, vote for it.
Right.
My words are this: it has been well under President Mnangagwa, it is well under President Mnangagwa, and it shall be well under President Mnangagwa. Vote ZANU-PF and President Mnangagwa. Thank you.
Fellow Zimbabweans, you have never seen my face on this TV. I'm here because I love you, I care, and therefore I invite you on August 23rd to vote Gwinya Muzorewa, the man who is going to bring prosperity to this country. Thank you.
We've come to the end of the chase this evening. Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program, brought to you by ZTN Prime in partnership with the Election Resource Centre. I'd like to thank my guests. I'll start from here. Gwinya Muzorewa from UANC. I've got Farai Marapira, ZANU-PF, Elizabeth Valerio of UZA, Jacob Mafume, Triple C, and Monyerazi Bwanya, representing Xavier Kasukuwere. He's his Chief of Staff. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the chase. Now, as I said, our election series will continue covering other issues. I talked about foreign policy, transport, education, social welfare. So make sure you tune into The Chase every Thursday, 9 p.m, right here on ZTN Prime. Well, that's it from us. I'm Andy Hodges. Good night, goodbye, and please, You all be safe.